Making headlines tonight. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said Cambodia's democratic process are functioning normally as commune district election campaigns with all the parties are running smoothly. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said repeatedly mentioned the reasons for his commitment to peace and protecting peace in Cambodia. Hundreds of Japanese people rallied at Shibuya Park in Tokyo to protest against the US President Joe Biden's 3-day visit to Japan. Sri Lanka has been embarked for sovereign default. They do not have sufficient funds to pay the country foreign debt obligations for 2022 with $4 billion to be repaid. This is the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Anthony Ellis. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said Cambodia's diplomatic process is functioning normally as commune district council election campaigns with 17 participating parties in total are running smoothly. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more.
Speaking from Davos, Switzerland on Saturday, 21st May, Prime Minister Hun Sen said the 17-party election campaign is a democratic process for Cambodia.
The
The 14-day election campaign runs from 21st May to 3rd June and is held every 5 years. Each party can hold gatherings, campaigners can march by foot or by vehicle, hand out flyers, promote their party over loudspeaker, or publish videos to promote their political programs and seek support from the electorate. Prime Minister Hun Sen has urged everyone campaigning to maintain their dignity and not threaten other parties with words or gestures, and to only compete with the use of politics. NEC spokesperson Hang Putia told EAC News that the election campaign has begun smoothly, with a large number of participants, good cooperation with local authorities, and no complaints of violence, showing the maturity of political parties in Cambodia. He added that this good conduct is an encouragement for people to go to the polls. The 5th Commune District Council election will be held on 5th June with 17 political parties participating in total. These parties will compete to hold 11,622 commune council seats from 1,652 communes and districts nationwide, with more than 9.2 million registered voters. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen has repeatedly mentioned the reasons for commitment to peace and protecting peace in Cambodia. He has said that the value of his word covered 6 factors that propelled Cambodia to develop as it is now. From Davos, Switzerland, during a meeting with more than 2,000 Cambodians in Europe and thousands of other social media followers on Saturday night, the 21st of May, Prime Minister Hun Sen stated the 6 values factors of the world peace and absence of wars: no deaths or disabilities due to war, no orphans and widows due to war, no influx of refugees in the country, no destructions of infrastructure, and the rise of democracy and human rights. The Prime Minister raised the question of what if the war continued to be present, which will be 24 years. How many more deaths, disabilities, destructions of infrastructure and sufferings would there be?
What the main nation group ban bằng card ở dươngរៀបចំដំណើរការប្រជាធិបតេយ្យនិងការគោរពសិទ្ធិមនុស្សក្របកភ្លើងវាអត់ដែលស្គាល់សិទ្ធិមនុស្សឯងកុំឆ្ងល់តែគេត្រូវការបាញ់ហើយគេបាញ់ហើយមិនថាភាគីណាទេតែកាលណាទៅបាញ់គ្នាគេបាញ់ហើយគេអត់ស្គាល់ថាអានោះវាសិទ្ធិមនុស្សទេវត្តមាននៃសន្តិភាពជំនួសឲ្យសង្គ្រាមនេះវាបានផ្ដល់ឱកាសឲ្យយើងអភិវឌ្ឍសេដ្ឋកិច្ចសង្គមកាត់បន្ថយភាពក្រីក្រយើងពិនិត្យមើលក្រោយសង្គ្រាមឆ្នាំក្រោយរបបប៉ុលពតប្រជាជនយើងមានត្រឹមតែជុំវិញ5លាននាក់ប៉ុណ្ណឹងឥឡូវ17លានណាកើតចោលនោះច្រើន តែខ្ញុំអត់បន្ទោសនរណាទេពួកខ្ញុំអ្នកនាំអាត
For the past 24 years, the Kingdom of Cambodia has marked 29th of December 1998 as the end of the civil war without bloodshed and achieved complete peace through the win-win policy of the Prime Minister Hun Sen. It was a majority policy that led Cambodia after going through the stages of war, the genocide regime of Pol Pot, and negotiations into the emergence of the win-win policy. Win-win policies have brought Cambodia back to peaceful United Nations after more than 500 years of fractured history. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said the world recovers from the COVID-19 crisis. The Russian-Ukraine war has now put the world in the worst position, affecting socio-economic development and long-term political geography. He has called the world to maintain order, peace and food security to ensure the well-being of the people across the globe. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has the details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen made these remarks at the opening ceremony of the 78th session of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, which was held under the theme of forming a joint agenda for promoting sustainable development in Asia and the Pacific on the morning of Monday, 23rd of May. The Prime Minister said that the current global COVID-19 crisis has improved but not yet completely gone away, and the main priority of the common agenda in the Asia-Pacific region, as well as the world as a whole, remains focused on overcoming the fight against COVID-19 by using vaccines as a key strategic weapon. He further praised the culture of mutual assistance, especially the sharing of COVID-19 vaccines, aimed at building full herd immunity throughout the world and encouraging openness and strengthening economic integration through the promotion of investment, trade, the full implementation of free trade agreements that have entered into force, and the connection of people around the world, especially in the field of tourism, to jointly restore and stimulate domestic and regional economic growth in the aftermath of COVID-19 crisis. Prime Minister Hun Sen also raised concern about the war in Ukraine, saying that this crisis not only hinders socio-economic recovery, but also has a long-term socio-economic and geopolitical impact. He called for joint efforts to maintain order, peace, and especially food security in Cambodia and the broader region by maintaining the flow of essential goods so that people do not suffer more and to ensure that no one is left behind. As the 2022 ASEAN Chair, Prime Minister Hun Sen is confident that the 78th session of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific will lead to lively discussions and the establishment of new mechanisms and initiatives for Asia-Pacific cooperation to promote recovery and growth after the COVID-19 crisis and towards achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals as expected. The Prime Minister emphasized that Cambodia is ready to participate as a country in the Asia-Pacific as well as the 2022 ASEAN Chair. Dekanin, EAC News.
Member of the Cambodian People's Party Standing Committee of the Chairman of the Youth Committee, Hun Manet, stated the election campaign aimed for political parties and disseminate policies and political programs to develop communes in order to earn votes. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has the story.
Hun Manet said during a meeting with activists, speakers, and the working groups of youths of Sphairing province on Sunday, 22nd May, that the main factor in determining the success of the CPP is to promote the major achievements and working policies of the party, as well as fully guarantee to the people the commitment of continuing to serve the nation and the people in all circumstances, and to absolutely protect the sustainability of peace, stability, and development in all areas of Cambodia. He thanked the working group of youths of Sphairing province for its efforts to organize a large family gathering for the party under the support of the Provincial Party Committee, while today is the second day of the commencement for the 5th mandate Commune District Council election campaign. He said, since yesterday, supporters of the Cambodian People's Party in all parts of the country, including the 80 communes in Sphairing province, have been active in the campaign abundantly, which shows the stature and the strength of the great unity to achieve the overwhelming success in the future. He added that far from the strategy of some competitors, most of which focus on attacks, criticism, fake news, or the promise of democracy, the main factor in determining the success of the CPP is to promote the major achievements and working policies that have successfully implemented from the past to the present, and with a clear summary and evaluation from one term to another, as well as to fully guarantee to the people the commitment of continuing to serve the nation and the people in all circumstances, and to absolutely protect the sustainability of peace, stability, and development in all areas of Cambodia. The 14-day election campaign runs from 21st May to 3rd June and is held every 5 years. Each party can hold a gathering, campaign marches by foot or by vehicles, hand out flyers, promote through speakers, or publish videos to promote their political programs and seek support from the electorate. The 5th Commune District Council election will be held on 5th June with the participation of 17 political parties. These parties will compete to hold Commune Council seats, which are 11,622 nationwide from 1,652 communes and districts with more than 9.2 million registered voters. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
On the morning of Saturday, the 21st of May, the political parties who will participate in the 5th election of the Commune Sankrak Council have started their campaign marches to complete the people's vote for their party. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
The largest party in Cambodia, the Cambodian People's Party, has launched a nationwide election campaign showing the strength of millions of supporters while other parties seem less active. In a message dated September 21st of May 2022, on behalf of the CPP, the president has pledged in front of the people that the party will successfully implement its policies to maintain peace, stability, security, order, social security, improve the provision of public services, increase social protection, increase the health of the poor and vulnerable, and developing communes in all fields to meet with the higher aspirations and interests of all the people everywhere. CPP's President Hun Sen said, for the past 43 years after the overthrow of the genocidal regime of Pol Pot with the historic victory on the 7th of January 1979, the Cambodian People's Party has led the nation through countless obstacles and difficulties to move forward on the right path that fully responds to the aspirations of the people to achieve great achievements in all areas. He added that the Cambodian people are now living happily in peace and national unity to develop society and improve their lives. CPP supporter Seng Lieng Chai has been a supporter for a long time and wishes everyone to go vote.
ខ្ញុំស្រឡាញ់គណៈបព្វជិជនយើងច្រើនតាំងពីចាប់ផ្ដើមសារទី1ឡើងព្រោះអីគាត់ខ្ញុំរស់ដោយសារគណៈបព្វជិជនហើយខ្ញុំមានសុខសប្បាយក៏ដោយសារគណៈបព្វជិជនដែរសារៈសំខាន់សម្រាប់កសាងភូមិឃុំយើងបានល្អដូចថាបងប្អូនយើងហ្នឹងជួយថាបោះស្នោជួយគណៈបព្វជិជនទៅព្រោះអីគាត់ដឹកនាំល្អណាស់តាំងពី79មកគឺល្អហ្មង
In addition, Yon Pierrot believes that voting is the people's right and duty.
ថ្ងៃនេះគឺជាថ្ងៃចាប់ផ្ដើមឃោសនាបោះឆ្នោតគណៈបកឃុំសង្កាត់នៅតាមឃុំរៀងៗខ្លួនហើយဒီនេះខ្ញុំចូលរួមនៅជាមួយនឹងគណៈបកប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាដែលជាគណៈបកដែលពួកខ្ញុំស្រឡាញ់និងពេញចិត្តគិតថាបោះឆ្នោតមានសារៈសំខាន់គឺយើងទីមួយយើងមានសិទ្ធិបញ្ចេញមតិនៅក្នុងការជ្រើសរើសមេដឹកនាំរបស់យើងហើយក៏ទីពីរក៏ជាការដែលយើងត្រូវមានការទុកចិត្តទៅលើថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំដែលធ្វើការអភិវឌ្ឍប្រទេសជាតិយើងផងដែរបាទ
On the first day of this campaign, another interested party that also marched in Phnom Penh is the Candlelight Party. Although party supporters say that democracy in Cambodia does not seem to be complete, they are happy to be campaigning and voting this year. A resident of the Kodak commune, Savina 50, is happy to see her party campaigning once again.
របស់ខ្ញុំគឺសប្បាយចិត្តព្រោះយើងខានឃោសនាអញ្ចឹងប្រហែលជា 4-5 ឆ្នាំហើយតាំងពីគេរំលាយបកសង្គ្រោះជាតិមកប៉ុន្តែបកភ្លើងទៀនជាហែក្បួនតូចតែម្ដងនេះយើងចូលរួមបោះឆ្នោតឃុំសង្កាត់នេះយើងហែជាក្បួនធំសារៈសំខាន់យើងចង់ចូលរួមក្នុងឃុំសង្កាត់ហ្នឹងដើម្បីការពារប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលគាត់មានការលំបាកក្នុងការធ្វើกระดาษស្នាមអីចឹងហ្នឹងហើយព្រោះពីមុនមានបកតែមួយគាត់ជិះសេលែងដៃអញ្ចឹងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋយើងពិបាក ឥឡូវយើងចូលរួមបកភ្លើងទៀនយើងជួយប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលគាត់ពិបាកធ្វើกระดาษស្នាមពិបាកអីចឹងណាហ្នឹងហើយនឹងយើងនាំលទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យមកប្រជាពលរដ្ឋគាត់ស្គាល់បន្តតាមគណៈបកភ្លើងទៀន
Another 50-year-old supporter of the Candlelight Party who wishes to remain anonymous does not believe that the election will be fully democratic.
មានអារម្មណ៍ថាសប្បាយចិត្តដោយសារប្រជាជនយើងកាន់លទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យចូលចិត្តអាឡែងអ្នកកាន់លទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យអញ្ចឹងការបោះឆ្នោតបើសិនជាទៅតាមលទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យមែនគណៈបកភ្លើងទៀននឹងអាចឈ្នះបាទខ្ញុំយល់ថាការបោះឆ្នោតនៅឆ្នាំនេះគឺមានប្រជាធិបតេយ្យទេមិនទាន់អាចសន្និដ្ឋានបានទេព្រោះខ្ញុំថា
Today's campaign includes marches from the CPP, Candlelight Party, and other parties, which went smoothly, non-discriminatory, non-violent, and equally. The National Election Committee also called on all local authorities to take a neutral position in their work and to coordinate the location, road, and time for each political party to implement their programs and their campaign marches. Samkontemi, NEFIC Executive Director, noted that on the first day of the campaign, there were two parties that launched large-scale campaigns, the Cambodian People's Party and the Cannot Light Party, and did not see any irregularities in the campaign.
ថ្ងៃនេះសម្រាប់ខែដំបូងនេះមិនមានភាពប្រក្រតីអីទេគាត់ថាវាអាចរលូនច្រើនណាបាទតាមការសង្កេតរបស់ខ្ញុំ
NEC spokesman Hong Putia told EAC News that the first day of the election campaign went smoothly, with a large number of participants, good cooperation, and local authorities, and non-violence, which shows the political party's majority in Cambodia.
ចឹងការសន្និដ្ឋានដំបូងដែលកោចបមិនទទួលបានបណ្ដឹងឬក៏បញ្ហាអសកម្មណាកើតមានចឹងអាចសន្និដ្ឋានបានថាថ្ងៃដំបូងនេះគឺប្រព្រឹត្តទៅដោយមានភាពល្អប្រសើរគណៈបច្ចុប្បន្នមានភាពចាស់ទុំហើយក៏សង្ឃឹមថានេះគឺជាការលើកទឹកចិត្តដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋសម្រាប់ការត្រៀមខ្លួនចេញទៅបោះឆ្នោតផងដែរបាទ
The 14-day election campaign runs from the 21st of May to the 3rd of June and is held every 5 years. Each party can hold a gathering, campaign marches by foot or by vehicles, hand out flyers, promote through speakers, or publish videos to promote their political programs and seek support from the electorate. The 5th Commune Sangkat Council election will be held on the 5th of June with the participation of 17 political parties. These parties will compete to hold commune council seats, which are 11,622 nationwide from 1,652 commune Sangkat with more than 9.2 million registered voters.
Chairman of the National Assistance Team for Panir Karek District, Tabong Khanum Province, Vong Sut led members of the Cambodian People's Party to start the election campaign on Saturday morning, the 21st of May. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more.
Minister Vong Sot, as the leader of the most seasoned political party on this occasion, told party members who participated in this campaign to always uphold the dignity of the National Election Committee. He also called on political parties, candidates, and supporters to abide by the rules, regulations, and principles set out in the law on commune district council elections and to adhere to the rules, procedures, ethics, and principles set to ensure that the election campaign for commune district councillors runs smoothly, securely, and without intimidation and without violence. The National Election Committee has also called on local authorities to take a neutral position in their work and to coordinate the location, road, and time for each political party to implement their programs and their campaign marches to ensure equality and ensure that no discrimination or violence occurs. The 14-day election campaign runs from the 21st of May to the 3rd of June and is held every 5 years. Each party can hold a gathering, campaign marches by foot or by vehicles, hand out flyers, promote through speakers, or publish videos to promote their political programs and seek support from the electorate. The 5th Commune District Council election will be held on the 5th of June with the participation of 17 political parties who will compete to hold 11,622 commune council seats from the 1,652 communes and districts nationwide with more than 9.2 million registered voters. Dekanin, EAC News.
Member of the Cambodian People's Party Standing Committee and Chairman of the Youth Central Committee, Hun Manet has stressed the importance of choosing a party to lead the country, saying that considering the selection of political parties to lead the country is like choosing construction process of a building, starting from a selection of architects and engineers with the right skills and experience to ensure entities' safety of comfort, as well as making sure the pick of the reputable builder with the confidence to ensure the long-lasting strength of the building. Lieutenant General Hun Manet made these remarks during a meeting with the workshop group and youth activists at Kampong Cham province on Monday morning, 23rd of May. He said, the president of the party and party leaders at all levels, as well as candidates for the Commune District Council of the Cambodian People's Party throughout the country, are all experienced in creating and implementing policies for leading, managing the country at both national and subnational levels, have achieved many outstanding achievements in the past. He continued, continuing this noble spirit and actions remains the continent of the leaders and the members of the Cambodian People's Party. He added that for almost 71 years, the CPP has been with the people since the overthrow of the Pol Pot regime, bringing peace, development and prosperity to the country. He reassured that the party will continue to contribute fully and succeeding force of reckon for a better future. The Cambodian People's Party was formed in 28th of June 1951 by Cambodian nationalists to liberate the Cambodian nation from the French colonisation. It is the oldest party in Cambodia and has pushed through the struggle of liberté of Cambodian people for the Khmer Rouge regime in 1979 and has continued to lead the country in the present day. The party is currently led by the President Prime Minister Hun Sen and 4 Vice Presidents, Deputy Prime Minister Sa Keng, Senate President Say Chom, Deputy Prime Minister Thi Bon, and Deputy Prime Minister Mun Sam Un, with National Assembly President Heng Samrin and Honorary President of the CPP Central Community currently has 865 members. The Secretary of State of Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans or Youth Rehabilitation, M. Chan Makara, has stated that persons with disabilities are always taken care of by the Royal Government. He said the government also works hard to raise awareness on the importance of technical and vocational training, to modernise technical and vocational education and training programs, as well as the focus on the program closer to persons with disability, based on the needs of the labour market. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
Secretary of State M. Chan Makara made these remarks at the opening ceremony of the Technical Working Group meeting on inclusive technical and vocational education and training for people with disabilities on Monday, 23rd May. He continued to say that increasing vocational training for persons with disabilities in accordance with the National Social Protection Policy Framework has also been promoted by the government, and the budget allocation by relevant ministries and institutions to support persons with disabilities with technical and vocational training is also carried out, increasing possibilities for persons with disabilities to volunteer and gain experience in the free labor market. The Secretary of State and Secretary General of Disability Action Council also said that in addition to national policy measures, the Royal Government has encouraged and supported employers, educational institutions, vocational education and training institutions that provide opportunities for persons with disabilities and their families to receive education, vocational training, skills and capacity building on communications through leadership training, confidence building, and career orientation. Ian Jones, the Executive Director of Agile Development Group, also spoke at the opening ceremony and said that persons with disabilities are estimated to represent 2 to 9.5% of Cambodia's population. He highlighted how generally persons with disabilities are more likely to live in poverty, and one of the main reasons for that is an unequal access to education and discriminatory hiring practices. Only 44% of children with disabilities have completed primary school, compared to 73% of youth without disabilities. He added that this gap continues to increase as the level of education advances, but said the Cambodian vocational training system is still at an infant stage in comparison to neighboring countries such as Thailand or Vietnam. In order to ensure sustainable transition of persons with disabilities to decent and appropriate employment opportunities, it is important to address the underlying prejudices, misunderstandings, and constraints of the vocational training sector and the hiring process of the private sector, said Ian Jones. Secretary of State M. Chan Makara, in response, said that he disagrees with one point that Ian Jones mentioned regarding vocational training in Cambodia still being in its infant stages, and encouraged his company to visit the Cambodian Vocational Training Center to see if it was really in its infancy like he had stated. He told the representative of the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training to send an invitation letter to his company, Agile, to see for himself. The Technical Working Group meeting on inclusive technical and vocational education and training for people with disabilities will be conducted at least once a year on a 2-day basis, attended by representatives of technical groups. Initial meetings will be kicking off in 2022, along with ongoing consultation on the generated guidelines, and the group will meet again to finalize the guidelines at the end of 2023. This meeting will bring together relevant stakeholders seeking to support the improved quality of inclusive education for persons with disabilities, undertake a rigorous assessment and ideation of best practice to inclusive education in the Cambodian context, and gain practical insight into how the barriers to the inclusion of persons with disabilities accessing technical and vocational education and training can be overcome from both the supply and demand sides of education. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
Us. The SEA Games have ended on a high note for Cambodian athletes, with winning 9 gold medals at the SEA Games, beating their previous total of 8 gold in Myanmar in 2013. Cambodia's total medal tally is 9 gold, 13 silver and 41 bronze, total of 63 medals. They've also beaten the highest medal tally by 10 medals. The old tally was 53 in Kuala Lumpur in 1971. The athletes return home to Cambodia tonight, and EAC News would like to congratulate all the athletes on their success. The SEA Games will be held in Cambodia from the 5th to the 16th of May next year. The host country finished on top of the medal tally of total of 446 medals. Vietnam finished with 205 gold, followed by Thailand 92, Indonesia 69, Philippines with 52, Singapore with 47 and Malaysia with 34. Cambodia has reported no new COVID-19 cases for the 15th day straight. There has been no patient recoveries and no new deaths. The total number of Omicron cases in the Kingdom stands at 15,821, with 1,362 imported and 14,459 local community cases. Cambodia's COVID-19 case tally has stalled at 136,262. The death toll stands at 3,056. The number of patients treated successfully since the pandemic reached Cambodia is 133,201, and the tally for imported cases remains at 21,219.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Sri Lanka has been embarked on a sovereign default as the remaining foreign exchange reserves of US $1.9 billion as from March 2022 will not be sufficient to pay the country's foreign debt obligations for 2022, with $4 billion to be repaid. Sri Lanka's documented history goes back 3,000 years. Its geographic location and deep harbours has made it of great strategic importance from the earliest days of the ancient Silk Road trade route to today's so-called maritime Silk Road. Because its location made a major trading hub, the country's trading luxury goods and spices attract traders from many nations, which helped to create Sri Lanka's diverse population. The Portuguese arrived in Sri Lanka largely by accident and then sought to control the island's maritime regions and its lucrative external trade. After the Senegalese-Portuguese War, the Dutch and the Kingdom of Kandy took control of those areas. The Dutch possessions were then taken by the British, who later extended their control over the whole island, colonising from 1815 to 1948. Independence arose in the early 20th century and in 1948. The domination was succeeded by the republic named Sri Lanka in 1972. Sri Lanka's more recent history was marred by the 26-year civil war, which began in 1983 and ended diversely in 2009 when the Sri Lankan armed forces defeated liberation. The domination was succeeded by a republic named Sri Lanka in 1972. Sri Lanka's most recent history was marred by the 26-year civil war, which began in 1983 and ended diversely in 2009 when the Sri Lankan armed forces defeated the liberation of Tigers of the Tamil Elam. In 2004, Asian tsunami killed over 30,000 and displaced over 500,000 people. During the 26 years of conflict of civil war between Sri Lankan government and the Tamil Tigers, between 60,000 and 100,000 people were killed over the many years. The Sri Lankan economic crisis is an ongoing crisis in the island nation of Sri Lanka that started in 2019. It is this country's worst economic crisis since the independence in 1948. It has led to unprecedented levels of inflation, near depletion of foreign exchange reserves, shortages of medical supplies, and an increase in prices of basic commodities. The crisis is said to have begun due to multiple compounding factors like tax cuts, money creation, a nationwide policy to shift to organic or biological farming and events as the Easter bombings in 2019 and the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The subsequent economic hardships resulted in 2022 Sri Lankan protests. In April 2022, the Sri Lankan government announced that it was defaulting, making its first sovereign defaults in Sri Lankan's history since the independence in 1948 and the first state in Asian Pacific region to end a sovereign default in the 21st century. Since 2010, Sri Lanka's foreign debt more than doubled between 2010 and 2020, with foreign debt was about 42% of the GDP in 2019. It rose to 119% of its GDP in 2021. By the end of 2022, the country is due to pay $4 billion to the debtors, whereas in April 2022, government reserves amounted to $2.3 billion. In April 2021, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa announced that Sri Lankans were only allowed organic farming, totally banning inorganic fertilizers and agrochemicals-based fertilizers. The drop in the tea production and the result of the fertilizer ban alone resulted in economic losses of around $425 million and created a 20% drop in rice production. The repercussions of the ongoing tense situation between Ukraine and Russia due to the Russian-Ukraine war are felt in already sluggish economic conditions of Sri Lanka. In 2021, the Sri Lankan government officially declared the worst economic crisis in the country's 73 years. In August 2021, a food emergency was declared. However, the government denied food shortages. On May 9, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned from his position after protesting the country's economic crisis turned violent. According to a statement given by his office, he resigned from his position to help form an interim unity government that can help ease recent protests over the shortage of fuel and other essential imported goods. On May 16, 2022, the newly appointed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe revealed that the government has no usable dollar reserves and even finding $1 million was a challenge. The country's Prime Minister was warned of the food shortage of the island nation faces and devastating economic crisis and vowed the government will buy enough fertilizer for the next planting season to boost harvest. Mainly for children, it is milk powder, and for even adults are affected with lack of milk powder, fuel, so many things, rice. Everything has gone up. Prices have skyrocketed, said a local resident who gave his name as Lilangani. Nearby, a long queue have formed in front of a shop selling cooking gas cylinders, the prices of which soared for nearly 5,000 rupees, which is $14 from 2,675 rupees in April. So without gas, we cannot do anything. Without kerosene oil, we cannot do anything. So the last thing we have to go and do is to die. Next month, you can see Sri Lankan people without food. A lot of people will die, said Mohammed Shazli, a part-time chauffeur in the queue for the third day to hope to find cooking for his family of 5. Today, police are using tear gas and water cannons against students who have been protesting for a better future, food, fuel, and to bring Sri Lanka back to prosperity. Hundreds of Japanese people rallied on Shiba Park on Tokyo on Sunday to protest against the US President Joe Biden's three-day visit to Japan as international tensions are running high over the Russian-Ukraine conflict.
Biden arrived in Japan on Sunday and is set to attend a summit on Tuesday where he will meet Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the Australian Prime Minister to promote the Quad mechanism. The Quad, also known as the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, was initiated by then Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2007, supported by then leaders of the US, India, and Australia. Protesters at the rally held banners reading "Oppose the meeting between US and Japanese leaders" and "Oppose the Quad and the IPEF," the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework proposed by Biden during the East Asia Summit in October 2021. Some protesters wore vests saying "Oppose wars." I oppose Biden's visit to Japan. I think it will bring about a new crisis to Asia. I think the US-Japan alliance aims to dominate Asia by military operations. Now the alliance is planning to gradually involve Japan and its self-defense force into wars, said Ryusuke Motoyama, a member of the Bureau of Affairs of the Executive Commission for Preventing Constitutional Amendments for War. I think the Quad mechanism is very dangerous, and I think the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework is also dangerous as it will do harm to Japan. I don't want US and Japan to hold top leaders meeting, said Kanamori, one of the protesters. Some protesters mentioned the ongoing Ukraine crisis, pointing out that the US and NATO are the root causes of the conflict. West European countries and NATO members led by the US have intensified the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, providing military supplies for Ukraine, imposing sanctions on Russia. All this will not stop the conflict, but intensify and prolong it instead. I can't forgive such actions, said Ota, another protester. From a historical perspective, it is the eastward expansion advanced by the US and NATO that provoked Russia's resistance. The root cause is the US, said Shunkichi Takayama, a lawyer. The Quad mechanism is a kind of so-called talks among robbers. They discuss how to carve up the world and form their small bloc of interests. They said they would stop wars for peace, but in fact they continue to provide weapons to Ukraine. We think what they did is wrong, so we oppose Biden's visit to Japan and their attempt to gang up, said Fumito Morikawa, another lawyer.
Let's have a look at today's finance. The CXX index is currently 506.52 points, down 2.19 points or 0.43%. The daily exchange rate is 4,061 real to the US dollar. Now let's have a look at finance around the world. Asia stocks weighed by inflation concerns, China tech selling. Asian stocks come under pressure on Monday as President worries about inflation and rising interest rates dodged by global economic outlook and fresh selling in technology stocks weighed in China's markets. MSCI's broadcast index of Asian Pacific shares outside Japan was flat after US stocks ended the previous session with negligible gains for the day. The index is down 3.6% so far this month. A negative tone was evident as the Hong Kong Hang Seng slid 0.38% and the mainland SCI 300 index dropped 0.37%, led by the 1.5% decline in technology firms. Australian shares gained 0.42%, while Japan's Nikkei stocks was 0.8% higher. The yield on benchmark 10-year Treasury notes rose 2.7883% for its US close of 2.787% on Friday. The 2-year yield, which rises with tenders' expectations of higher Fed fund, touched its 2.5869%, up 2.583%. Uncertainty in market sentiment this week follows the SP 500's merge gains on Friday at just 0.01%. The Nasdaq declined 0.30%, while the Dow Jones Industry rose 0.03%. Despite the marginal gains, the SP 500 and Nasdaq recorded their 7th straight week of losses, the longest losing streak since the end of the dot-com bubble in 2001. The Dow suffered its 8th consecutive weekly decline in its longest since 1932 during the Great Depression. Wall Street ahead of bear market looms battered. Wall Street seeks exclusive Fed up. The Federal Reserve's determination to raise its interest rates until it squashes the highest inflation in decades is darkening outlook across Wall Street, as US stocks stand at the cusp of a bear market and warnings of the recession grow louder. At an issue of the so-called Fed put, or investors' belief in the Fed will take action in stocks fall too deeply, even though it has been mandated to maintain asset prices. One oft-cited example of the phenomenon, which is named after the hedging derivative used to protect against market falls, occurred when the Fed halted the rate hiking cycle in early 2019 after the stock market tantrum. A recent survey of Buffer Global Research showed that fund managers now expect the Fed to step in at 3,529 on the SP 500 compared to the expectations of 3,700 in February. Such a drop would consider a 26% decline from the SP since January 3rd closing high. The index, which closed Friday at 3,901.36, is steady down almost 19% from the high this year on an intraday basis, close to 20% decline that would confirm the bear market according to some definitions. That's the latest news in finance. Tune in tomorrow for more. Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect for tomorrow. Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup here on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, check our website, eacnews.asia, or search EAC News on Telegram, Smart TV, or your favourite app store. More from the EAC News team tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.